how the idea developed? Why did you decide to change it, or you didn't change it?
What happened? Yeah. I remember when we just came to Murmansk and you were telling us all about also the informality and the informal economies existing in Murmansk, in the fishing trade, in the geopolitical level. But I think having just visited Khardatsev, so where I was born, it was maybe a touch of sentiment, but also this personal level that got me intrigued into knowing about the new generation of the area, and also thinking of informality not only in terms of social economical positions, so not only in terms of informal economies, but also informality as a state of mind, let's say. So which could then also apply to the newer generations, because I was really interested also speaking to you and meeting a lot of young people there. We were interested in what is the new generation doing in this highly politicized context, and what are their thoughts being placed as digital natives, you know, grown up with internet, with access to the world, but still on the periphery, still in this very interesting context. How do they then find their ways around certain constraints of the region? So in that way, it was also about informality to me, but then less of a informal economy, let's say.
And I know that for you, it's like a, how to say, personal project that you started to develop, because it all comes from your history, like your personal history. And do you think that you have been in another space than you expected to be while your visits to Khardatsev?
Yeah, like thinking about my position first, I didn't actually really know what to expect, because I hope this is not gonna interfere with the sound. You know what I mean? Like it's not. But
phones.
yeah, sorry, I will probably just switch it off. Oh, but it is my mom though. Sorry, can I just call her back super quickly? I'm really afraid that she's maybe not. Wait, that she maybe doesn't know how to enter or something. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. To find. I was actually not thinking about the personal approach until we got there, because at first I don't remember the place. I've never been to the north. I remember meeting you when you said, "So when are you going to come to the north?" And I thought, oh yeah, well maybe it is time somehow to see where you're from. So I was actually thinking about it strictly from an anthropological perspective of the structures I would find there, and the people I would meet. And then being in Pralive, it was really a shocking experience actually, because we found the little, let's say, military town where I was born completely deserted as a ghost town. And I think that is the moment where this link came through of the deserted areas, which we also started to notice, because once we moved to Murmansk and we frequented the city and the kind of the outskirts of the city, we would always find the same type of, let's say, the same age category in the same areas. So, for example, all of the, or we would always find youths from between 16 and 19 in all of the unfinished, deserted buildings, which then got us thinking back about Pralive and making this link about what it is like to be this next generation in this area, but also by moving through these areas become the new geological layer of these areas. So this is, I guess, the link that did derive from my personal experience and us being there. Yeah. Maybe you want to say something about how it was for you, or I don't know.
Yeah, for me, yeah. So since I was not born there, for me it was kind of different, and I really had to find also an approach that would kind of honor all these places, and not be like somebody from the outside coming and being like, hey, this is my stuff. And so yeah, then I thought it would be nice to actually record the soundtrack at all the locations and to really incorporate all of the acoustics that we find, and also by, as I'm an improviser and a drummer, I'm using all the inert objects that we found at location and to make them sound, and to kind of create also like space from sound, and to look at all these materials present as instruments. And so I recorded a bunch of field improvisations, and it was very interesting to see like the similarities in materials that are spread around the area, and to see their acoustic qualities, and then also we found that the way that I would engage with these spaces there, like from improvisational perspective, that it actually is also very similar to all the youth that we saw there, and they're also very much in a physical way improvising with the spaces and checking out like what are the possibilities. And I remember one day we invited them to like an old factory site that is close to the river in Murmansk, and it's a very interesting site that has like all these kind of concrete sort of carcasses spread out with like strange window holes or things they would climb through and just go inside the buildings, and it would be like staircases that just lead to open air. And it's kind of nice friction of a place that is very calm on one end, and on the other hand it's kind of it's exciting, and it's also quite dangerous actually, because the structures are like they're not meant to be used anymore, and these youth then kind of they rethink that, and they're actually making use of this space in a very interesting way. So it was also really inspiring for me to then like again try and engage with these places myself and do the recording. So that was kind of my perspective, I guess, for the project.
And how did you find those places where you were recording both like visual and sound? Who was those people? Have you decided yourself where you were going?
I mean, it was also kind of word of mouth. It was research. I don't know if you remember, we were speaking to a lot of you and your friends and colleagues, asking what are kind of the places where friction happens, that are places that are not, let's say, formalized areas, that are in a way kind of out of use or out of order. That's their formal function, but actually informally there's so much more happening with them. So that was the starting point. But at the end we happened to run into so many actually youth of that same age category. That was just really coincidental, and that's in a way also our method of working, I guess. This intuitive way of field research. So we ran into a lot of young people that then were also interested by our interest, and then they just took us with them in a way. So by talking to them, they said, "Oh, but actually we also go on walking on the train tracks that we think are not in use anymore. We do this kind of usually on Sundays. Would you like to come with next Sunday?" So this is kind of how they at the end also ended up showing the city or their city to us.
Which was kind of funny actually, because these train tracks, we found out that I think a day later or something, they were in fact in use, because we were walking there again and to shoot still some images, and we were like a train, like, and it's like, oh shit, we have to get out.
So they are not in use. And actually looking back to, well, the moment in the interview where they said it, it's also this air of adventure and not being afraid, because they also didn't say they're not in use anymore. They literally said, I don't think many trains run on them anymore. So it's even this way of maybe kind of crossing certain borders or trying to break out of certain constraints, not just constraints of the region, but I believe constraints that every teenager is fighting with. So the rules that your parents and your education is putting on you. And then of course maybe the rules of a certain political aspects are also in place there, but that's not just the solely thing. So in that way, I think that the conversations we've had with them and the things they showed us are also in a way universal. There's a universal aspect to it.
Yeah. Although additionally, I also thought it was quite cool that there were also some buildings that actually were meant to be finished, but they just ran out of budget, or there were some other reasons for that. And so we visited, I think, what was supposed to be become a hospital, and they had like a helicopter platform and everything, and it was 2 gigantic structures. And this we actually found through just going through Google Maps and checking out photos that people took there. And there was this this guy, and he just made this 360 sort of photograph on top of the building. So we were like, let's check it out. And yeah, again, we found like many youth there, and actually also a lot of like this adventure-seeking sort of energy there and activities.
Yeah.
So I think there was like a lot of bungee jumping, and things went wrong.
Strike
also
ball, yes.
strike ball, and all these things. So,
yeah.
But yeah, and it was really beautiful to see actually, and also a very interesting layer that you have something that actually is. Yeah, it's relatively new. I mean, Murmansk in general is quite new, but that this building just stopped and is now being used in this way, which of course was never meant to be like that.
I know that you have been doing some researches, or like at least project in Russia, for example, champagne drinkers, or like at least you've been. Do you think that the adults or like elder generation can be one of the guides to you and tell you what places can be checked? I mean, are those realities by the elder generation and the younger are still the same?
I guess every generation can tell about their reality and show a city from their personal, very specific perspective. And that's what I also found in Champagne Drinkers. Then I was so interested about, I guess there was also a certain age category. They were all people of, let's say, 35 up till maybe 60, so kind of more adults, and they were of course talking about their informal economies, let's say. So then I think that was really about these topics. But what also what I found striking when we were filming in Murmansk now is that somehow I realized, hey, I haven't spoken to any adult anymore in this entire time that we're here. And then that suddenly you start to think as the audience that you, or let's say the characters that you are following, because then I was looking to adults thinking like, oh, I haven't spoke to adults, whereas I of course am also an adult. But so you kind of start to also circle, let's say, in these youthful circles. And I guess we were really absorbed by that. So I guess in a different topic, of course, every generation can offer incredible amount of insights.
Yeah, but I think, like for now it was very interesting to see this kind of, I think probably a more, like a bigger difference in the fact that, of course, this young generation is brought up with internet, and they have this more sort of global view and they also take that actually to the city itself. So we saw some cosplay things and
K-pop dancing in front of monuments.
Yeah, and they were also doing this like inside the city center, and there that really showed like kind of the differences in these generations.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was very interesting to us to witness.
It's a completely different perspective, and they're so much more progressive than when I was growing up. So that's an incredible thing to see, what internet, and maybe also Murmansk being a harbor city, and maybe it has always been the case, what that brings, basically these youth trying to reattribute their ideas to the city, or try to, when they cannot change the certain structures that are of course vastly in place, they take to the outskirts to then try to...
And that's something they're doing now, but they're also at an age which is very like sort of vibrant, because they're about to become adults, and they have these huge decisions to make. And I think that's actually kind of a vital point in their lives, where like now they have all these different perspectives, and as opposed to the prior generations that they came to work there and they had their goals, but now the youth, they kind of see different things, and they want to move to the city or something. So
they don't just want to be a fisherman or a military man like
so they have
parents.
a totally different perspective, and I think that's a very critical sort of moment for the city in general. And we're also really interested to see how this will develop in the future. Like, will these youth actually find a place in Murmansk where they can develop this newly gained vision that they have, or will they actually join the army or the fisherman or whatever is there, obviously. And we're looking forward to stay in touch and see like what will happen to the youth we've met. And
continuing on following the guys that have been also recorded by you, your work have been premiered in Russia, like at the Medvedeva Festival, and it was the first time when actually we, the organizers, also decided like to make this free entrance by those who have been born in 2000s, because for us it's also kind of a new thing that we can try. I mean, you can use different like discounts or anything like early birds and etc., but you're never thinking about using this age, how to say,
factor.
Factor. And the first time that it was the first time we decided to do this, and it was like this way that we did it, like those who was born from in 2000.
Yeah.
And how like, I mean, when you met those guys, when you met those people who were either recorded or friends of those, what do they say? How do they react? Like, what was the first meeting after the screening? After the screening,
well, first of all, that was a brilliant idea. I'm so happy that that you chose for that, to actually have free access for everybody born from the 2000s on, because also they were entire communities, right? So the anime community, the girlfriends that we met, their dancers, the guy on stilts and his friends. So we were also really thinking how to get everybody in and how to also make it interesting for them. And then because of this, they came, like so many of them came, and we didn't expect it. And I think that was also very important for us to see, kind of to see their reaction, to see that they were really happy to see themselves, also trying to make sense of what they've seen, because I think like one of the girls, and the great thing is they are online, they're on internet, so all of the well, not all of them, but a few of them, you know, they were also posting about it on their own Instagram, and one of the tags was, it's strange but beautiful. So they're also kind of trying to think, okay, what are these weird people coming to do? But I think they were at least very much excited to kind of go through the city with us, and also it's like they were also developing that work. Remember when, Do you want to talk about that?
I just want to say that this is really a huge step kind of in this development of like trying to involve them, and I think it's really important, and it's great that you actually made this possible for them, and to reach out and say like, you know, have a taste of, you know, what this festival has to offer, and what other types of music or imagery there are. And also for them, I think it was probably interesting at least to see, like, because they were hanging out with us, and or we with them actually, and they've seen us film, and we talked a lot, and now they can see like where we took that, and what sort of different lights it sheds when you see all these images together, and also to see actually other youth of their generation like in the same work. And it was amazing to see them after the performance, and we were so happy that they were there, and we all had chai, and they also had the chance to then meet each other, and that was really beautiful to see. And also there were already like some new developments in their own lives, like they were going to study, or you know, and it was so nice to see, and they were really proud of, you know, being in the film, but also like, you know, taking their lives somewhere to like next step. And
oh, actually, if I can like quickly say something, like another experience of them, or at least of them seeing the film, I was maybe expecting it, but I was still a bit disappointed that one of the mothers came with one of the characters, let's say a young guy who you can hear in the film most of the dialogue is his, actually, because he was saying incredible things. He was such a in his youth, he's already such a progressive and critical thinker in a way. So we were really amazed by the things he was saying and his view of the world. And then he said, like the first thing I asked, I said, so how are you? How have you been? And he said, well, I don't know, not so good now, because my mom was here, and she said, well, it's this negative thing again. And then he didn't say that his mom said it, but later he said, yeah, I also had people in my life that called me that I'm not a patriot or not a good patriot. So yeah, I'm thinking what to do with that. And I felt like we also felt kind of that it was part of our responsibility, and it was this clash, because I find him so visionary in a way for his age, and then at the same time it's so horrible to see also this kind of generation conflict, So we're having this conversation about, but do you think that if you're critical of the structures, of the power structures, and if you want progressive kind of, if you want to move things forward, do you think that makes you not patriotic? That doesn't have to be this way. So I was also really hoping that things with him are gonna turn out, or like let's say that he's gonna continue in this way. And then we were also kind of discussing this a little bit in the group when they all met. And then some girls actually said, yeah, but this is like this old generation conflicts. I mean, of course. And then I was like, oh, I'm so happy. So they get it. They're not worried, so.
A bit provocative question. Do you think that the informals, or like informal, those characters or those people, generation, can be formals in a few years?
Yeah, I think, like I said before, this is kind of a critical time for them, and this is the moment where they choose where to go next. And I think that actually in the boy we were talking about just now, he's struggling with that very topic, and like either he chooses to go in with like what is kind of the pathway that is already intended for him to go through, or maybe he is strong enough and to just have his own decision. And I think he can, of course, he can choose a profession that is maybe more locally, how do you say that? Accepted, yeah. But for us, it's just important that they all feel the necessity of and the ability to make their own choices. And I think that's something that, in a way, it would be nice for them to have sort of guidance, because they are then now the digital natives, but they are still very young, and like who is there to tell them, like, you're doing the right thing, or maybe also like showing the kind of the counter side of the internet, or like maybe this is not a very good choice for you to do, or but they have to experiment with that. And I think that, like, coming back to these deserted areas, this is kind of their experimental playground, and to see like how they feel with themselves, and if they can just let go a bit more of the structures that are within the city in this very specific place, then they can learn from that, and they have to kind of progress in this behavior as well. And I'm very curious still, and I think it's also really important for us to keep coming back and to stay in touch with them, and to also, in a way, we're kind of responsible, I feel, but yeah, to know what's up with them, and not to just come there and make this work and just leave them to it. And so